This is Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa. The story of resurgent and burgeoning Africa is here, only on the Pulse of Africa channel. Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.
Hello and welcome. I'm Tinsai Gabia with Pulse of Africa News, bringing you the latest stories and updates from across the continent. First, South Africa. President Cyril Ramaphosa formally received the G20 Africa Expert Panel report today, emphasizing its importance as a strategic guide to unlock Africa's potential. As South Africa prepares to host the historic first G20 Leaders Summit, this week Ramaphosa highlighted Africa's vital role in global prosperity, citing its youthful population and abundance of critical minerals. The president supported the panel's call for a new international partnership, prioritizing infrastructure development and human capital investment. He issued a strong warning that without urgent action to address the continent's heavy debt burdens, Africa risks experiencing a lost decade for development, affecting the broader global community as well. During his G20 presidency, South Africa has prioritized debt sustainability, with Ramaphosa pointing out that African nations currently face borrowing costs much higher than similar economies, which hampers investment and economic growth. To overcome these obstacles, he urged ending biased risk assessments of African countries, calling for greater transparency from credit rating agencies and increased concessional funding from multilateral banks to lower capital costs. Ramaphosa committed to advocating these proposals at the summit to stimulate investment and development. He described the report as a crucial resource for mobilizing resources and pledged that South Africa will work closely with the African Union and international partners to advance these initiatives. The government began constructing the National Veterinarian Reference Laboratory, a high-security BSL-3 facility designed to strengthen Rwanda's ability to detect and respond to animal and zoonotic diseases. Zoonotic diseases are infectious illnesses that can spread between animals and humans. The groundbreaking took place at the Ruberizi Research Station in Kigali, supported by a $24.9 million grant from the Pandemic Fund under the One Health Pandemic Preparedness Project. The new laboratory, which replaces a 4-decade-old facility, will enhance diagnostic capacity for diseases with pandemic potential, especially amid rising threats such as the 2024 Mpox outbreak. Officials say the $3 million construction project will boost surveillance, laboratory systems, and workforce development, and reduce delays caused by previously sending samples abroad. Agriculture Minister Mark Saibarhiro Bagabe and Health Minister Sabine Nisanzimana both stressed that the laboratory will advance Rwanda's preparedness and contribute to global health security. The Pandemic Fund's Pira Basu added that the facility will support efforts against antimicrobial resistance and position Rwanda as a trusted regional resource. The initiative aligns with the One Health approach and includes strengthening early warning systems, expanding surveillance across human and animal sectors, upgrading biosafety laboratories, and improving quality management and accreditation. Libya's High Council of State announced on Tuesday that it has reached an agreement with the Eastern-based House of Representatives in coordination with the Central Bank of Libya to unify the spending mechanism between the country's rival administrations. In a statement issued from its headquarters in Tripoli, the High Council of State, an advisory body for the Tripoli-based government of national unity that review legislation and advice on policy, said the agreement establishes a unified financial pathway that ensures sound management of public resources, protects public funds, and enhances transparency in directing expenditures toward development projects aimed at improving services and infrastructure across Libya. It stressed that halting the parallel spending previously carried out by the Eastern-based government marks an important step toward ending duplication and random expenditures, helping to establish clear rules for public administration that support stability and serve citizens' interests. Libya remains divided between two rival governments, the internationally recognized GNU, which governs the western part of the country, and a government aligned with the House of Representatives in Benghazi, controlling the east and some southern cities. The country, a major oil producer, has lacked a unified budget for more than a decade. In a statement published on its official Facebook page on Tuesday, the Central Bank of Libya welcomed the agreement as a necessary precautionary measure to protect the macroeconomy from crisis previously warned off by its board of directors, affirming its commitment to cooperate with all national parties to ensure the agreement's success and achieve its objectives. So far, the Eastern-based House of Representatives has not commented on the agreement. South African broadcaster Azania Mosaka has urged Africans to take the lead in shaping the continent's global image, saying international media has long misrepresented Africa. Speaking to Pulse of Africa, she said Africa's story is often told through narrow lenses of poverty and crisis, ignoring its richness, diversity, and dynamism. It's important for Africa to lead and shape its own narrative, she said, adding that outside portrayals have often harmed the African brand.
It's very important for Africa to take hold and to lead and to shape our own narrative, to be the ones to shape our narrative, because we know historically the narrative about what happens in our countries, who we are as a continent and as a people, has not always served us. If anything, it has been harmful to the brand, the African brand. It's often exploited narratives around poverty, whereas this life in Africa is so much richer. You know, that we're not a flat people. We're dynamic. Life is rich on this continent, incredible heritage. And so often those narratives do not get told to the broader to the broader globe. So that's why we have to lead. We have to be front and center in telling our own stories. It is the conqueror who tells the story. The lion is the one who tells the story. But this is an opportunity through platforms like Pulse of Africa for us to lead in shaping what the rest of the world thinks when they think of Africans and this continent.
Mosaka called for global media to prioritize authentic African voice experts, journalists, and communities on the ground rather than outsiders who misunderstand local realities.
Often we defer to experts who have never even been on the continent, or people who are sitting in global capitals who purport to know what life is about on this continent, and that can often be a huge disservice. So I think global media companies can start, in fact, by deferring, by listening to civil society, listening to community leaders, listening to African leaders, and prioritizing journalists who live and work in the continent ahead of everything else, so that they can get the real and true perspective. Follow Pulse of Africa Media if you want to be in the know on what Africans are thinking and doing.
She praised platforms like POA for helping reshape global perceptions and ensuring Africans are front and center in telling their own stories. Ghana's transport minister says a 10-member task force is accelerating work to establish a new flag carrier as the government pursues its goal of strengthening the country's position as a regional aviation hub. Joseph Bukari Nikipe told the country's Business and Financial Times newspaper at the recent Transport and Logistics Fair in Accra that the team is developing a business model and management framework for the proposed carrier, which he said is intended to be competitive, sustainable, and reflect Ghana's long-term economic ambitions. Nikipe said Ghana must leverage infrastructural investment as its main airport, Accra, and its strategic location as the gateway to Africa. President John Mahama issued a directive at the end of April for the appointment of the task team to lead the process of creating a new airline. This follows several unsuccessful efforts to restore a national carrier, including a recent bid involving Ashanti Airlines and the earlier proposers with Ethiopian Airlines and Egypt Air. Ghana has been without a functioning state airline since the collapse of Ghana Airways in 2004 and the failure of its successor, Ghana International Airlines, 6 years later in 2010.
This is Africa, the cradle of humanity, the frontier of the future, a land of visionaries, creators and pioneers, a continent of unstoppable energy where innovation meets tradition, where voices rise, loud and fearless.
I am an African.
This is the heartbeat of a billion people, diverse, bold, united by a single purpose to tell our own stories in our own way. No borders, no barriers, no filters. A new era of African storytelling is here. From every corner of the continent, from the bustling cities to the quiet village, we tell Africa's story by Africans for the world. This is the land of a rising Africa, where Africa speaks and the world listens. This is why today we bring you POA, Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.
Ahead of the G20 summit in Johannesburg, a panel of experts led by former South African Finance Minister Trevor Manuel warned that Africa is trapped in a worsening debt crisis. The briefing highlighted that governments across the continent are now spending more on servicing debt than on vital sectors like health and education. This financial strain is being compounded by climate shocks and an outdated global financial system that Manuel described as punishing development and locking countries out of economic opportunities. Manuel emphasized that the global financial architecture is structurally biased against developing nations, specifically pointing to the role of credit rating agencies. The panel argued that the big three agencies unfairly drive up borrowing costs for African countries. Manuel stressed the importance of forcing these agencies to operate with greater transparency and to respond differently to African circumstances, noting that their current methods directly impact the quality of life for millions. Kenyan economist Jason Branganza described the situation as a social time bomb, warning that prioritizing creditors over citizens creates a default on development. He noted that nearly half the continent allocates more than 50% of its national budgets to debt repayments. While this satisfies lenders in the short term, Branganza argued it risks a severe regression in social outcomes and creates fertile ground for civil unrest. Dr. Vera Songwe, a finance expert from Cameroon, countered that external reforms must be matched by internal improvements. She stated that sustainable economic growth is the only viable way to tackle the debt burden. Songwe called for competent governance, principled leadership, and clear domestic policies to ensure that any borrowing is effectively translated into tangible sustainable development rather than wasted funds. The briefing, which included specialists from the UN and IMF, served as a stark call to action for the G20 leaders. The experts concluded that the current debt crisis is not merely an accounting issue, but a systematic failure that amplifies crises ranging from climate change to political instability. They urged immediate reforms to prevent a lost decade of development for the continent. The JOSPO Group of Companies and the United Nations University Institute for Natural Resources in Africa have signed a landmark memorandum of understanding to bridge the gap between climate and ambition and tangible action across Africa. The agreement was finalized on Monday on the sidelines of the COP30 in Belém, Brazil, witnessed by a delegation from Ghana's Parliamentary Select Committee on Environment, Science and Innovation. The collaboration aims to fuse JOSPONG's practical experience in waste management and agriculture with UNU-INRA's research capabilities to drive green industrialization and empower small to medium enterprises. The partnership is designed to address critical infrastructure and technology gaps that currently hinder African entrepreneurs from entering a green business sector. Professor Fatma Denton, director of UNU-INRA, emphasized that while JOSPONG focuses on action-oriented implementation, the UN Institute brings the necessary research expertise to support these initiatives. She highlighted the difficulties African businesses face regarding resources and technology, stating that this collaboration leverages the strength of both institutions to build climate resilience and support the continent's transition. Representing the conglomerate, Dr. Glenn Kawebana Gaima, General Manager of the JOSPONG Group Green Transition Office, described sustainability as a vital market force capable of driving economies. Professor Denton also contextualized the agreement within the broader scope of the COP negotiations, calling for a fair deal for Africa that prioritizes finance and technology transfer. She argued that while decarbonization is essential, it must be inclusive and equitable. We want decarbonization that's fair, decarbonization that's inclusive, she remarked, stressing the need for international agreements that support the unique challenges faced by African nations in the climate crisis. Samuel Eto'o has insisted that the Cameroonian Football Federation will proceed with its presidential election on November 29, directly defying a government order to suspend the process. This decision has intensified an institutional standoff, putting the Football Federation against state authorities who recently attempted to halt the General Assembly. The conflict escalated when the Ministry of Sports suspended the electoral process, citing persistent irregularities and what it described as targeted exclusion of political rivals. The government subsequently requested the Ministry of Territorial Administration to block the election, warning that the situation was causing rising tensions within the country's football community. Despite these warnings, Eto'o remains the sole candidate poised to secure a second term. He was the only applicant to submit a valid candidacy after other potential challengers failed to meet the necessary endorsement requirements, a situation that triggered the government's accusations of unfair exclusion. FICAFOOT is standing firm by relying on FIFA's strict non-interference statutes, which generally prohibit government intervention in national football governance. To legitimize the process, the Federation confirmed that delegates from both FIFA and the Confederation of African Football will attend the session in Bankomo to supervise the vote and ensure its integrity. By involving international officials, FICAFOOT has placed the election under global supervision, effectively challenging the government's ability to intervene. With preparations moving forward and the vote just weeks away, the confrontation between the state and the Football Federation remains a complete deadlock. Thanks for joining us on Pulse of Africa News. Keep following us for more stories that matter across the continent.
Today, we would like to share with you some insights and analysis regarding the African diaspora. Who are the members of the African diaspora? How did they move beyond the borders of Africa? What roles are they playing today? What is their connection to the continent? The term African diaspora refers to communities of people of African descent living outside the continent. This dispersion began with the transatlantic slave trade, which forcibly transported millions of Africans to Americas, Europe, and other parts of the world. In modern times, the African diaspora also include those who have voluntarily migrated for reasons such as education, employment, or escaping conflict. Economically, Africa's diaspora has emerged as one of the continent's most undervalued financial engines. Recent data shows that remittances to Africa are projected to exceed $100 billion annually. This remarkable flow of capital represents a transformative shift in how African markets and development financing are perceived. In some countries, diaspora remittances account for 10 to 20% of GDP, making them vital for household survival, education, healthcare, and small business growth. Beyond remittances, diaspora communities are increasingly investing in real estate, technology startups, and infrastructure projects, helping to modernize African economies and drive innovation. Culturally, the African diaspora has had a profound global impact. Through music, literature, and fashion, it has made African identity a powerful global force. Africans abroad also serve as ambassador of African culture and values, building bridge between Africa and host countries while shaping international perceptions. Politically, the diaspora plays an important role in advocacy and activism. There is no doubt that the African diaspora wields immense influence in shaping the continent's culture, economy, and politics. The pressing question now is, how are the African Union and other continental organizations leveraging these indispensable resources to achieve the goal of Agenda 2063? Today's POA in Depth will explore the efforts being made to integrate the African diaspora as an essential part of Africa's future. Stay with us.
The sons and daughters of the African continent, scattered across the world in various corners of the globe, remain deeply connected to their ancestral land, even from afar. Their role in Africa's development has been historically significant, and it's one that continues to evolve as the continent's future becomes more globalized. With the African Union's 2025 theme of Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations, the diaspora finds itself in an even more pivotal position. It is no longer just a source of remittances, but a key player in Africa's long-term growth, helping to shape policies, economic models, and cultural exchanges. For many of them, Africa is not just where they came from, it is where they will see their future flourishing.
At the continental level, because of the diaspora or the recognition of the diaspora, there was an amendment protocol to Article 3Q to this Constitutive Act, ensuring and inviting the participation and inclusion of the diaspora into the affairs of the African Union. That alone is remarkable. Another thing that was set up, of course, in 2003, the Citizens and Diaspora Directorate, where I belong, was as well set up to ensure that we support diaspora and civil society interests, or should I say non-state actors' interests. In view of that, we'll see as well that there was this protocol, or there was this decision that was actually proposed by the Republic of Senegal that speaks to us considering the diaspora as Africa's sixth region. So there have been a lot of strides in this respect.
As the African Union sets its sights on implementing the ambitious Agenda 2063, a blueprint for an integrated, prosperous and peaceful Africa, the diaspora's involvement becomes crucial. Beyond financial support, the diaspora brings invaluable expertise, networks and strategic influence. From Silicon Valley to London, New York to Canberra, millions of Africans abroad carry with them critical knowledge, skills, and access to international markets that can spur technological innovation and infrastructure development on the continent. The African Union Director of the Citizens and Diaspora Directorate, CIDO, plays a critical role in harnessing this power, acting as a bridge between Africa and its global community.
They do a lot of advocacy already. So far as the continent is concerned, there's the need for us to encourage them to do better, and then make sure that it is in this respect, looking at the issue of justice, looking at the issue of human rights violations, looking at the issue of colonialism and its adverse impact on the continent, looking at the issue of slavery, neo-colonialism, genocide, apartheid, nuclear testing, so on and so forth, and then its repercussions on the continent. And then even what is prevailing is systemic racism. So these are some of the things that, one, diaspora can actually advocate and raise awareness on its relevance. Two, they have a lot of social capital to bring on board. They know people, even if it's not them, they are able to actually mobilize that kind of social capital that we need to ensure that this cause is actually progressive. They can as well lobby, depending on where they find themselves in international arena, so on and so forth, in one way or the other, to at least create that momentum, build that awareness, realization that there's the need for recognition of wrongs that have been done, acknowledgement of these wrongs that have been done, and then the need for us to actually sit at table and then address some of these issues. Plus, the diaspora can as well enhance research and development in these areas.
By providing avenues for engagement and collaboration, CIDO ensures that the diaspora is not just an external observer, but an integral participant in crafting the future of Africa. Agenda 2063 is about more than economic development. It's about fostering a Pan-African identity where all Africans, regardless of where they live, are united in their vision for the future. The diaspora is essential in bringing this vision to life. CIDO's work focuses on building inclusive platforms for people of African descent to engage in meaningful dialogue about their shared future. These dialogues are not only about economic opportunities, but about the cultural renaissance that will redefine African identity on the world stage.
Africans in the diaspora can continue to play a role in this. For example, the African Continental Free Trade Area provides vast opportunities for investment, business, and human capital development on a scale never seen before. We want to learn from the experience of others in regional integration and technological innovation to ensure success. I urge all of you to continue to remain engaged with Africa. There are many ways to stay up to date with what is happening here and take part in the many opportunities that our continent has always offered. We will continue to be good partners on this front, and indeed, we look to you to do your part in addressing the challenges facing Africa.
As Africans abroad reconnect with their roots, they bring with them stories, values and perspectives that enrich the continent's diversity and strengthen the bonds that tie Africa's nations together. By ensuring that the diaspora has a seat at the table in discussions about Africa's future, CIDO contributes to building a united continent that looks both inward and outward. The diaspora's role in advocacy, human rights and democratic processes is invaluable, especially in a continent where governance structures vary widely. CIDO's role in leveraging the diaspora's capacity for advocacy and leadership ensures that Africa's global presence is strong, assertive, and based on principles of justice and equity. By providing a platform for the diaspora to engage with the African Union's political mechanisms, CIDO ensures that these voices are heard and that the African Union's governance agenda is informed by the experiences of those who understand the world beyond Africa's borders. Through initiatives that link African scientists, engineers and entrepreneurs in the diaspora with counterparts on the continent, CIDO helped pave the way for groundbreaking solutions to Africa's most pressing challenges, from healthcare to energy to agriculture. As Africa looks toward realizing its dreams for the future, CIDO plays an essential role in ensuring that the relationship between Africa and its diaspora remains mutually beneficial. By empowering the diaspora to take ownership of its place in the continent's development, CIDO fosters a sense of collective responsibility. This partnership is not one-sided. The continent is just as invested in its diaspora's success, recognizing that the growth of African communities abroad is intertwined with the prosperity of the continent. With a strong collaborative relationship built on shared goals, Africa's path forward is not just about meeting the ambitions of Agenda 2063, but about creating a world where the African diaspora is a central partner in realizing the continent's full potential. The African Union Commission's Director of the Citizens and Diaspora Directorate, CIDO, stands as a beacon for this evolving partnership, guiding the diaspora's contributions toward building the Africa we all dream of, a continent where every African, whether at home or abroad, can say with pride, "I'm part of Africa's success."
That concludes this week's edition of PO in Depth. I hope you enjoyed the program as much as I did. Many thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye to you all.